Hello, and welcome to the Homeowner's Handbook. I'm your host, Jeff Boone, and I'm going to take you through the different parts of the house, how they work together, and what, if anything, needs to be done to help maintain them. Today, I thought we'd start with the part of the house that you see every day, but rarely look at. No, I'm not talking about your significant other, but instead, I'm talking about windows. Windows have been a part of the home since man left the comfort of a cave. Modern architecture has put more and more windows in houses, so much so that the back of some of them look like they're almost entirely made of glass. From an energy efficiency standpoint, windows are the weak link in the home envelope. But before we get into that aspect of it, let's define what it is we're talking about. Normally when we talk about windows, we mean the window unit, the glass and the frame. Let's start with the glass. Glass itself has been around for thousands of years. Ancient Egyptians and Greeks dabbled in it, while the Romans even had glass windows, although not our kind of windows. That glass really had more in common with the stained glass in churches than it does the glass we have today. It was mainly about keeping the wind out of the baths and allowing a little bit of light, not so much about visibility in and out. Later on, a few hundred years, we end up with crown glass and broadsheet glass, both of which were very expensive and labor-intensive to produce. In fact, in the frontier times, having glass in your house was a sign of prosperity. Moving forward to the late 19th century, we start to see the glass like we have today. I'm here at Lewis Street Glass with Janie Byers. Janie, tell us a little bit about how glass is made.
Well, the main ingredient in making glass is a quartz sand. It's put into a big furnace where it's melted down up to about 2,600 degrees. From the furnace, it then goes on to these big tanks. Where the tanks, it's run out onto a smooth line. The glass cools, it hardens, and it's cut. But it's a continuous run. We've heard that glass can be as long as 5 years long because the machines continuously run their cut as they need it. And from there, it's put into cases where it's then distributed to wholesalers who send it on to us.
So this isn't one of these processes where you just go like see it back here in the shop. There's not a lot of places around the country that do that.
No, it's very unlikely that you'll ever actually see glass made. You can see it packaged and distributed, but we've never even seen it made.
Fair enough. And then what kind of glass is there? I mean, everyone kind of assumes glass is glass, but there's different types, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of glass. You have your clear glass, which is just your basic glass. There's several thicknesses that it can be made in. You can add, your colors that can be made to it. They add a gray and a bronze, which are your real common colors, and then they also go into blues and greens and lots of different shades. And that's just a dye that's added to the clear glass and then run through the same processes. There's also obscured glass, different patterns that you can't see through that are laid out, and they have a mold placed over them to create a pattern in it so you can't see through it.
And what's the most common glass you would see, particularly in, say, older parts of town? Is that just a standard?
Definitely just a real thin, about 1/8 inch thick, clear glass is by far the most common thing.
How does tempered glass different from regular glass?
Okay, well, tempered glass, once it's made, it starts with a regular piece of glass, then it's cut to whatever size it needs to be, and it's run through yet another oven, which zaps it with a really fast amount of heat. It comes out of the oven. It's strengthened quite a bit. It's designed so that if it was to break, it shatters into tiny little pieces so that you can't get hurt on it.
Oh, sounds like
That's always indoors and in your cars and places people tend to walk through.
Excellent. Yeah, exactly. It's a safety feature, so thanks. That brings us back here. So far we've discussed the visible aspects of the window. What about the frame? There's wood, vinyl, aluminum. Forgot to ask you about frames. Tell us about frames, Janie.
Okay, well, there's different types of frames you can use. There's vinyl frames, wood frames, aluminum framing. Most common in houses is a wood frame with a vinyl clad, so it looks like it's wood on the inside, and then there's a vinyl clad on the outside. It helps maintenance, and it has a nice look on the inside. Maintenance on the outside is relatively simple. You don't have to do a lot of painting and resealing.
Hey, easier for the homeowners and easier for you guys too, I bet.
Yes, yes, they generally come apart pretty easy for us to be able to replace a broken window.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So now that we've gone over some of the big broad stuff, let's hone in a little bit on home windows specifically. Now that doesn't help a whole lot because here in Kansas we have homes ranging from just built to homes over 150 years old. Older homes have or had single pane windows. That is one pane of glass between the precious indoor temperatures and the cruel whims of Mother Nature on the other. Not especially energy efficient or comfortable for the home occupants, though certainly better than an open hole and a lot better see-through than shutters. It feels like we're closing in on some useful sciencey stuff. Perhaps a little classroom session's in order. Let's go check in with Professor Building Science and see what he has to say. When talking about energy efficiency for windows, there are two main components to keep in mind: solar heat gain coefficient and the U factor. We'll start with the U factor. You may have heard of R values before when talking about the energy efficiency of a product. Now, R values are mainly used for insulation, or even see our insulation episode for more information about them. For windows, we don't use R values because that would be, I suppose, too easy. Instead, we talk about U factor. The good news is that if you have the R value, you can get the U factor of something, and vice versa. It works like this. U factor equals 1 over the R value, which means that these are inverse of each other. So, while a good high R value means great at thermal resistance, the U value needs to be lower. And then if I want to, this to be higher and this to be lower. So the lower the U factor, the better the window is at keeping the heat from transferring from one side to the other. In the winter, that is, warm inside stops from heating all of the outside. New windows come with a sticker on them that includes the U factor already on it. For existing windows, we can estimate them like this. Single pane windows, that is, windows with just one sheet of glass, have a U factor between 1 and 1.3. So with a U factor of 1, that means, of course, an R value of 1. Simple math, right? If you add a storm window, the U factor becomes approximately 0.6, right around twice as good. A factory-built double pane unit has a standard U factor of about 0.5. In R value terms, that would be R2. Math is still simple. Double pane windows, of course, two panes of glass that are factory sealed together. If you add a low E coating to a double pane window, the standard U factor for that can be estimated at 0.35. Low E coating meaning low emissivity. Finally, with a heavy triple pane low E window, that U factor can be 0.25 or even lower, which of course is R4, or better. Remember then, higher R value equals good, lower U factor equals good. Now, for solar heat gain coefficient, that's enough for now. We'll come back for that. Fine. This home, like many in older parts of town, has single pane glass with storm windows attached. It makes for a U factor of about 0.6. All in all, not bad. Doesn't meet Energy Star requirements, but yet it still keeps the original look and feel of the house together. You could add a low E coating to the storm window as well to make it even more energy efficient and more comfortable. Also, if you think about it, replacing the existing unit with double pane units wouldn't be that much of an energy upgrade anyway. Even new low E windows would only be about 33 to 40% better window. So it's something you certainly would want to run the numbers on yourself before replacing your glass if that's one of your main considerations. As far as maintenance, there's not a whole lot needs to be done. The storm windows can be caulked or painted on in order to air seal them some, as well as just, of course, your basic cleaning. I'll get that. So So to talk about newer windows, I'm here at Pella Windows of Kansas with Bill Haynes. Bill, how are we doing?
Hi, Jeff.
What can you tell us about newer windows? How are they put together, and what should people be looking for when getting new ones?
Well, when people now are really concerned about energy efficiency and ease of maintenance,
Sure.
So you want to make sure that the window has the Energy Star label, which is just a program by the EPA and the Department of Energy, kind of a joint venture to make things very efficient. You want glass that's efficient, and then a frame that there's no maintenance.
Sure. Now, well, I guess we'll go from the outside in. Let's talk about frame. What kind of frame choices are there in newer windows?
Historically, everything's been wood. About 20 years ago, we went to an aluminum clad finish on the exterior.
Okay.
And in the last several years, there's been big strides in vinyl, and then fiberglass is a hot item right now.
Now, are they hot items then because of the way they work, or because of the way they look, or both?
Both. They're both very energy efficient, ease of maintenance. Just wipe them down. You don't have to paint or maintain anything on them.
Oh, excellent. Is any choice more energy efficient or less energy efficient than others? I believe some of those metal ones might transfer heat a little easier, but
Sure. With the aluminum window or aluminum clad wood window, everything's insulated with the wood to the inside. Again, the vinyl and the fiberglass windows, because of the way they're constructed with multiple air chambers, they're really very energy efficient, and even rival the wood windows nowadays.
Oh, well, good to know. Except for, of course, wood windows. If you get or have a wood window, you do need to worry about sealing those and doing something to maintain that wood, right?
That's correct, yes. There is some maintenance that's going to be required with a wood window. Again, the outside is aluminum clad, so you don't have to paint or maintain that, but there is some maintenance on the inside.
Oh, excellent. Well, let's talk a little bit about the glass then. You mentioned low E, I believe, early on, or if you didn't, we'll mention it now. Low E glass, a big deal, energy efficiency. Where does that low E coating generally go?
The low E coating is applied to the interior surface of the glass. It's a very thin metal oxide that's applied when the window is manufactured. And then we also put an argon gas in, which is heavier than air, that keeps air movement down in between the glass.
So let's talk about some of the other choices. Now, there's also, in case we've talked about this before in the episode as well, but talk about double pane glass. There's two pieces of glass right there.
That's correct. There's two pieces of glass sealed together. We also have an option for three pieces of glass sealed together.
Sure, triple pane.
Triple pane, that's correct, and that's available in a vinyl window. We also have it in our wood windows where we can put a shade in between.
Oh, really? That's pretty neat. One would assume that triple panes then can get kind of heavy, though. I know they're more energy efficient, but they could get kind of heavy, wouldn't they?
That's correct, yes. But the operating hardware and all that is beefed up to handle that additional load.
The other thing I just thought of, triple pane windows, are those available in the style that you can crank out or something like that, or are those pretty stationary?
No, they're available in stationary windows and operable windows that crank out or slide up and down.
Now, there's a fair amount of terms within the window industry. There's casement, and then there's, well, that's the one that sprung to mind. What are the kind of styles? If the window salesman comes to someone and says, "Hey, you need a casement or don't," what are the choices?
I think everybody probably grew up with a double hung window that slides up and down with both sashes. Now there are single hungs where the top is fixed in place and the bottom just slides up and down.
Okay.
And then a casement window does pivot open. It cranks open for you can catch a breeze from both directions.
Oh, sure.
And plus it is a little bit tighter window. When you actually crank it in, you lock it down, it pulls it in against the weather stripping.
Yeah.
And so it's a very efficient window and very popular in this location in the country.
So let's talk about the difference between, say, a contractor doing it or a do-it-yourselfer. Our window is a product that people can just go and put in themselves. And if that is an option, what should they be looking for, be aware of?
Well, it's like any other home improvement project. It really depends on how handy you are. Some people can do it and some can't. Sometimes it's best left to professionals. As far as window replacement goes, there's two types of window replacement. Where one is full frame, where you tear everything out, take the interior casing out, take the entire window out. make sure your opening is good, tape it off, put a new window in, new casing and all that.
Sure.
Another type of replacement is what's called an insert window, where you take typically that happens on a double hung window where both sashes slide up and down. Sure. You take the sashes out and a new window is made to sit right back in that old pocket. You set it in there, seal around the perimeter, and you're done with it. Oh. That is probably a little more friendly from a do-it-yourselfer standpoint, sure. But you still have to have accurate measurements and all that to have the window built, because typically no one's going to take a window back after you've had it built.
You better. Another classic example of measuring twice, cutting once.
That's
right?
Correct, exactly, exactly.
When it comes to contractors, though, so let's say you decided to opt out of the do-it-yourself. Say someone decided that's not for me, but I do still want new windows. What should they be looking for when choosing a contractor?
Well, certainly you want to check out the references. We always try to recommend people that belong to our home builders local membership, Wichita Home Builders Association, because it is a reputable group. You want to make sure they've been in business X number of years.
More than one.
More than one, yes. And even some of the new guys. But you just want to check their references and see some of their work. Talk to some of the people they work for.
Are there any licensures for inside the window industry for installation or for installers?
Typically, you do not have to have a permit if you're just replacing windows. If you're moving things structurally, you do.
Oh, big change.
But about anybody can replace a window. Now, again, if your home was built before 1978, then you do now have to go with all the lead regulations by the EPA, and that can be very expensive.
Oh, yes.
From a contractor standpoint, it can be very expensive. Now, that is one thing a homeowner can do and not have to follow those regulations.
That's exactly the big difference there. Of course, homeowners can do whatever they want to their structure, but as soon as you've hired someone
As soon as you hire somebody, then they have to tape everything off, wear the mask and the little suits and all that.
That's exactly right. And have a vac that vacuums up a certain amount of particles.
The HEPA vacuum cleaner, which are $1,000 a piece.
That's exactly it. But, hopefully, trying to avoid getting all that lead in the air.
Sure.
It's not quite to the, let's use another boogeyman, not quite the asbestos level of concern,
Exactly.
but it is a concern. So let's say someone buys a